Hello and welcome to Language of the Soul podcast. I'm your host, Dominic Domingo.
And I'm your co-host, Virginia Grenier.
We'd like to invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy some inspiring conversation. Here at Language of the Soul, we know that life is story. Individually, we're the products of the stories we tell about ourselves. Culture is the amalgamation of the stories we weave about the human condition. Here's the thing. Individually and collectively, we can write our own story. Thanks for tuning in and joining in the march toward human potential.
Cheryl Murphy is an accomplished evidential medium and psychic who has studied metaphysics for over 20 years. She has oriented her practice as a spiritual medium toward channeling departed loved ones and helping people make life's important decisions. Cheryl is an ordained minister, certified hypnotherapist, and a health and wellness intuitive. She founded the Healing Prayer Circle and is a contributing author to The Last Breath, True Stories of Mediumship, the Afterlife, and Messages from Heaven. Cheryl aims to connect people with their inner light and intuitive abilities. Sign up for Cheryl's free intuitive psychic abilities test at www.mediumcheryl.com. Cheryl also has a podcast of her own titled Seeing Beyond, Living Transformed. Okay, and I'm going to go on. This is going to be a slightly longer bio than normal because basically, in my experience, terminology becomes really important when discussing, especially things that society has traditionally been dismissing as fringe or new age or frou-frou. I notice often terms get kind of conflated. So I'm going to read a section from your website. Is it here? Yeah, defining some terms for myself and our listeners, just to inform our discussion. The About section of your website really kind of explained what skill sets you bring to the table in your practice.
A clairvoyant psychic medium is someone who sees information in a person's energy field in order to provide psychic readings. In addition to personal information and intuitions, he is also able to receive information about loved ones who have passed over. It is really three gifts that are orchestrated together to bring forth information to assist in guidance and clarity for a clear and joyful vision to gain insight, information, and support for growth and happiness. Being a clairvoyant, I see colors, pictures, or moving pictures, just like a movie screen, to help me describe the information that is most helpful to you. Being a psychic, I am aware of energies around the body in the auric field. I am also a medium, which means I connect with people that have passed to the other side. My mediumship skills allow me to connect with your loved ones. They usually stand behind you, and sometimes they sit next to you. I see them as a silhouette of vibration. Usually, I can see what types of clothes they are wearing and their mannerisms. These characteristics help to confirm their presence. Their personalities are the same as when they were in physical form. When I communicate with your loved ones, they have immense love for you and want you to know they made it to the other side and are okay. Welcome, Cheryl Murphy.
Hi. Hi,
How are you?
Dominic. Very nice to meet you.
Hi, Cheryl. How are you?
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
Good.
The first one is going to be a rote question that we've now, speaking of kind of retooling yourself in the new season, we've been asking rote questions of our guests just to keep things on brand and under the umbrella of story. So in the spirit of our podcast, which of course is about the cultural impact of storytelling in all its forms, and that goes for the micro and the macro level. And I love that you seem to use the word transformation quite a bit in what I was able to research about you. So in that spirit that we're all about story in its many forms, and it is so vast. Life is story, as we say every week. How would you say story informs your practice or your world, your life?
When people come to me, they have a need, and usually they're guided by spirit. And what I do as a medium is to really connect them with their own inner light or their own higher guidance system, and
Mhm.
I love to empower people. It's really my goal to either bring through, confirmation or validation of what they are already getting intuitively. And that's the thing is, people are not sure if they're intuitive or how do you tune into your own intuition?
Mhm.
And so that's my goal as a medium, psychic, is to really open people or open the door, put them on their path
Mm.
of knowing that, the answers are right before them. And it is about following those hunches, following those intuitive voices, so to speak, which is always the first voice, that really quiet voice that tells us the answer. But then we wait a few seconds and the next voice comes in, the ego, and that just provides that doubt. So,
Right.
really, you want to listen to that first voice.
Mm. Love it. Yes, I think we could all trust our gut, right? And
It is.
but I guess that is a good lead into one of the rote questions I wanted to ask you. You probably hear it a lot, but to what degree do we all have innate intuition, and is it a muscle we can all develop, or are there, degrees of talent like in most fields? Do we all innately have the same potential and capacity, and is it a muscle we can flex, or do individuals, do you know what I mean, have a gift in some way?
Mhm. Well, I believe probably both. I believe we can always develop our intuition and practice it. And I do believe some people, maybe it's just more naturally available through their life experiences growing
Mhm.
up, or maybe they've had something open up for them, for example. And in some way, but in some way, it is more available to some people naturally. But I think that
Right.
goes for a lot of things like playing the piano,
Of
right?
course,
Sometimes
right.
some people are just better at it, or they find it easier for them. And it
Well, there's
is.
so many variables too. It's like maybe you were given permission to do it in your household, or your milieu, whatever it is. Societal, norms differ from region to region, and there's so many variables that maybe you are allowed to be in touch with those gifts. Whereas in other regions or households, it might have been shamed, right? And it does go for creative efforts as well as intuition.
Absolutely. And that's what happened with me is growing up, it was a natural conversation to have, around the dinner table, so to speak.
Hmm.
My mother grew up psychic. And so naturally, our loved ones, aunts, grandmothers, the women's side of our family, very in tune with intuition, with ability. And for myself, my mother always encouraged it. So for me, it is more natural. And it is that muscle that you're talking about where we want to teach people to open it and close it, right? You want to open that muscle just like going to the gym. You want to do a good workout and then you come home and rest, right? And then the muscle builds and also that intuitive muscle builds as well.
I heard the rest, I work out, so I'm very aware. You got to rest in between your workouts. And there's different schools of thought all the time. It's sort of a cottage industry, right? Do you wait 24 hours or 48 hours, between working out a certain body part, for example? So why would you turn off your intuition? Is it a protective mechanism so that you're not walking around with a thin skin and absorbing energetic, non-local communication all day, every day? Is it protective, or why do you need the downtime?
Yeah, it's certainly part of it. It's because you can really open up your energy field to be in everyone else's energy, so to speak. And
Hmm.
that can be draining or tiring
Of
after a
course.
while. Also, you want to maintain your spiritual health and fitness, so to speak, your energy. We don't want to walk around tired. We don't want to walk around so sensitive that sometimes you can be overly sensitive and maybe take things personally.
Right.
But yeah, you do want to kind of learn to open and close. And it is through that process or that practice that you find out that you do have a lot of energy when you can somehow connect with spirit, when you
Mm.
ask for guidance, even in prayer and meditation. I think that's so important to opening that muscle.
I love it. It sounds a little bit like learning to have some discipline in your gifts, right?
It
Um,
is.
so,
Yeah.
I mean, on that note, I don't know if this is going to fly or not, but I have noticed everybody's a narcissist, right? If you go on the internet, right, instead of taking responsibility, if you don't like somebody's point of view, oh, they're a narcissist. The other buzzword of the day is empath.
Hmm.
So that does, I've heard myself just in my mind, I don't often share it, but I think, okay, so you're human, great. So like now kind of grow up and learn to not have that thin skin or to separate your stuff from other people's stuff, as we said. I think I don't know that anyone's. Do you believe in the word empath? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I do believe in the word empath, and I believe that the spiritual awakening that's happening even in this moment, people are
Mm-hmm.
having, they're opening up to their higher sensitivities.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are not even sure what's happening with them. They just know they're over emotional, so to speak. But
Right.
it is that empathic ability that we all have, and we do need to practice self-care. We
Mm.
need to learn to set boundaries. And maybe that's where that narcissistic person comes in, is because in some way, I believe narcissism, right? They maybe even look for empaths because empaths
Right.
go out and want to help everyone, and
Right. Well,
no.
on that note, it's I don't know if you've heard of peptide addictions, but it's the same phenomenon of like, a codependent will find an alcoholic across the room at a party because you are addicted to those particular peptides, and
Mhm.
it's magical the way it happens. So yeah, you're not. I really only brought up the narcissist. I guess buzzword because it is so prevalent in pop culture. But I
Oh
agree
yeah.
with you. It's a good thing that we're having these conversations and that there's no shame attached to saying I'm an empath, whereas there might have been before it became a cultural priority. But I just was hinting that I feel until you, like you said, they don't really know what they're dealing with because it takes time to get to know who you are and how to wrangle your innate gifts. And so I just think early on you might identify as an empath, and later when you gain control over your gifts, you might put it in different terms. That's what I was hinting at.
Yeah, and being an empath is really, it's really a gift, or it is about learning to explore your own energy field. And right, when people are opening up, because people ask, right, people are asking to be more intuitive, they want to be psychic or open up that clairvoyance, that third eye.
Hmm.
And you have to understand that you will become more sensitive when you begin practicing this. And it is about
Hmm.
self development and personal development as well. The work that I do, it's not the answer for everybody, and it's certainly not a therapy type of a session. So I always encourage that self care or self development along the way. Having said that, it is a beautiful companion, or it is a beautiful ability that strengthens our intuition, where we can live, more of a joyful life, or even manifest more of
Hmm.
what
Yeah.
what we want to in life.
It almost seems like you're making it a gift and not a liability, right? And once you kind of it's on your radar and you make it a priority, what you put your attention on grows, right? So once you start nurturing it, that's maybe when you have to figure out, am I going to turn this into a gift or is it going to remain a liability in some way?
Hey, right. And it's a practice. It's a
Mm-hmm.
practice, and developing it is a practice. And some people want to sit down, in 1 hour and have everything be correct for them as far as being a psychic or being a medium. But no, it takes practice. It takes discipline. It takes discernment. It has to be ethical, and it has to be setting the intention. We have to understand that, why are we doing this, right? We're going out to help others. We're going out
Mm-hmm.
to be of service, right? There's such a high
Mm-hmm.
vibration. And we want to know how to raise our vibration, and how can we best care for ourselves and care for others, really, to bring this beautiful connection with this intelligence of the spirit world, because they're very intelligent. It is about bridging that inner information and opening other people up in a safe way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not bringing any, there shouldn't really be any fear when people are opening up around being a psychic or a medium, but there is because of, it's taboo, even that
Mm-hmm.
word can be.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how well we had I guess a nun turned mindfulness coach in the tech world, in the corporate
Mhm.
arena. And mindfulness is the new spirituality, by the way. And I've always joked, I say, oh, don't worry if I use the word spiritual, I'm talking about Oprah's spirituality, like the non-threatening mainstream one.
Right.
And
Right.
it's more palatable for people somehow.
Well, and I was going to say sometimes, like you, as you said, right now some of the words that we're hearing out there is, empath and narcissist, and then you're talking about like how we say, well, going and talking to a psychic or a medium and stuff, how sometimes people don't want to talk about that because they'll usually like, I'm trying to be more mindful because it's taboo. I mean, these are kind of the cultural stories we tell
Yes,
ourselves,
yes.
so it goes right back to the whole premise of what we always talk about, which is again that macro micro level of our inner stories and our outer stories, both, in the
Mm,
external and internal worlds that we live in
yes.
consistently.
We were all born the same. We are
Hmm.
all have the same ability. We all have the same amount of intuition. Not one person has more or less. And we all have those beautiful hearts of ours, but they get wounded along the way in
Mm,
childhood, what have you. And we have life experiences that shape our lives. And, some of us need more healing than others. And some of the most prominent intuitives, have really sometimes difficult challenges in their life. They have tough lives, but they are opening up to be amazing individuals that are become the world's best teachers in what they
mhm.
study because they've been through it.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
well, and sometimes you need those come to Jesus moments or those, what do we call it? Existential crises or the dark night of the soul or whatever that challenge is that puts you on your path. I feel like we're all just lumps of clay, and sometimes our experiences mold us to be our best selves. I mean, to make it really empirical, I've said in the book and on the podcast, we are wired to sort of join in the march toward human potential by being our best selves. Epigenetics kind of laid it out that way. So
Hmm.
sometimes it takes those nudges, right, from the universe in the form of challenges.
Mm-hmm.
But on that note, I would say, was there a distinct moment for you? Again, we have a lot of guests, and it's so fascinating to hear the universals in the hero's journey, to tie it back to Story, Virginia. The universals, milestones, but also the different forms they take. And, all of our spiritual lessons come in different order. It just looks different on different people. But I'm always fascinated when, again, Denise Piles, the nun, said, "Oh, I knew at 7 that that was my calling." And Joan Chittister, another nun that I listened to, said, "Absolutely. I was at a funeral and I was fascinated by the nuns. And I said, 'Who are those ladies? I want to be that.'" So Anna Mariah Carey came out of the womb with a microphone in her hand. It's fascinating when you know so early on. So was there a distinct moment
Yeah.
for you when you found that it was a calling or even kind of knew that was the direction you wanted to go?
There were several experiences that I had. I saw spirit at 3 years old, or very very young, when I was still in the crib, so to speak, or very much as a beautiful golden globe. Like, I've always had this love relationship with spirit, feeling that they're supportive. So I saw that beautiful ball of golden light, at a very very young age. And then, growing up in my teens, I knew I wanted to study this. I knew I wanted to help people answer those questions that they were all asking. And then it wasn't until, my late 20s, so to speak, that angels actually came. I had this amazing awakening experience in the middle of my home. I'm in the living room, and this amazing angels come to me. They're beautiful, tall, once again, lights of beautiful white light. It's as if they picked me up by my t-shirt and dropped me in a lifeboat and said, we're saving your life, right? Because we
Wow.
need you to help us. We want to get our voice out there, and we need you to help us. And we're going to help you, reach more people. Because I wasn't doing it full time yet. It was always like a weekend or, an evening practice. I was doing it
Hmm.
part time, this work. And it wasn't until I had that moment, that awakening with the angels, that I
Wow.
stepped into saying, okay, well, here we go. And within 3 days, it's almost as if, it's the synchronicity, I have to say. It's the
Mm,
putting the right people started coming to me, the helping me with business, helping me reach people, helping me,
mm,
how am I going to bring them into my home, or work with them, via phone call. But it is amazing synchronicities that have happened to me
hmm.
since. And then,
That's kind of what I meant by once
yeah,
something's on your radar, or,
yeah,
it is the nature of manifestation. What you put your
yeah.
attention on grows. But sorry to interrupt you, but it's a
No,
beautiful image. And thanks for sharing
mhm,
that. It does remind, like in all of this, though, a little bit what I'm hearing is I love that the calling came to you as a way to serve initially,
mhm.
not a way to wield power or to manifest for personal gain, if that makes sense, but as a service. So, do you know Michael Beckwith, Agape
I,
Church?
yes, I love Michael Beck.
I
Yeah.
adore him, and he's gets me up in the morning. But he talks about different stages of consciousness. It's just his terminology, but in Life Visioning, his book, he talks about, first of all, victim consciousness, right?
Mm.
Oh, my circumstances and conditions account for my limitations in life, or the fact that I don't have inner peace, tranquility, whatever it is. You just blame your laundry list of grievances. But then when you do learn to manifest, like we're kind of talking about here, it can be for material gain, right? Or I don't know, power, maybe. It's not necessarily toward the end of servicing humankind. But then the next one would be where the ego comes out of the equation, and you
Yeah.
learn to manifest maybe for the right reasons. But I
Mhm.
like that your calling was initially in the context of service. Does that make sense?
It does. And that is it. Actually, raising the level of consciousness is
Mm.
what you're talking about. It's about working in these higher chakra areas, the upper trinity, so to speak, the heart, the fifth, sixth, seventh chakra. It is
Mhm.
about being of service and having humility, and really about kindness, right? So you see what's lacking in the world, or things that we do need to put our focus on and put our attention on. But
Mhm.
yes, mine's always been working for the angels, so to speak, or working for the voice of the spirit world. I'm delivering their message, and
Mhm.
I step out of the way, so to speak.
Right.
I bring through their voice. So really, that's who I work for. It's their need that wants to come through. And we all have angels and guides and departed loved ones in spirit. So really, it is about bringing that voice, or bringing that essence of the spirit world through.
Mm. Beautiful. Well,
Mhm.
maybe now is a good time to define some terms. So, in your practice specifically, you do identify as an evidential psychic. Is that right?
I'm an evidential medium,
Medium, sorry.
which
And you're
means that,
clairvoyant,
and
right?
I'm clairvoyant, right? That inner sight that we use our third eye with, that fifth chakra on the forehead. Clairvoyance is all about having vision, or
Mhm.
seeing for yourself, seeing for others. It's about seeing what's down the road, or seeing even in the energy field. And, things in what I do with my psychic abilities is we understand that we can have those experiences subjectively. So I can see in my mind's eye what's happening, or an image that I'm seeing for you. So
Mhm.
subjectively, and then also objectively, I could actually, and many people can see the spirit world, or we see
Mhm.
flashes of light, right? Or we see a shadow go by us, or we see,
Mhm.
even a silhouette of an
Mhm.
angel, so to speak. So everything is subjectively and objectively as well. But yeah,
Mhm.
clairvoyance is inner sight, inner vision. And
Right.
then in my evidential mediumship, I bring through information from the departed loved ones that people can validate, they can confirm.
Oh, that's, I guess, why
Yeah,
I thought maybe you were an evidential psychic, because it
yeah.
seems like that is, one of the characteristics is that it can be validated by the patron. Is that the word?
True, true, absolutely. A patron, the client, the sitter is
Mhm.
also another term that we use. But yes, absolutely. So what I
So,
do as in my work is I work with the energy field of the
mhm.
person, and then also work with the energy field of the departed loved one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, I'm going to play the real mainstream listener here and say, I've been lucky enough to have to have been exposed to some real intuitives in my life, but Tyler, is that his name? Tyler Perry is
Tyler.
kind of like my
Mhm.
goat, like in terms of how a reading goes down. Now he tends to he draws right to access his intuition, which I
Mhm.
love. Being an artist, I love that idea. I'm guessing that he's accessing the right brain, but also he likes to have objects, from the departed to
Mhm.
hold. How
Mhm.
do you approach a reading? What exactly goes
Right.
down?
Right, Tyler Henry, right?
Henry, I'm sorry. Where
Yeah,
did I get
that's him.
Perry? Is that a
Well, there's a
filmmaker?
Tyler Perry.
Okay, all right.
But there's Tyler Henry. And yes, he uses something called psychometry, which is holding an object. So we're reading an object, whether he's reading a piece of jewelry, which
Mhm.
I have done many times also. But we read an object from a departed loved one. We can hold their watch, or hold their earrings, or, something, anything really that belonged to them, because
Mhm.
everything holds energy. And he
Mhm.
also, like you said, he doodles, or he scratches, he draws on the paper to distract the conscious mind. So it allows
Exactly.
the intuitive or the spirit mind to actually come through and for that flow to
Hmm.
increase. For what I do is I really allow the spirit to. I feel them really. I sense them through my clairsentience. So
Hmm.
I'm sensing their presence come through. Or I use my clairaudience to hear things. And I'm sure Tyler is clairaudient also and clairsentient, but it's using our clairs. So we use our different abilities of hearing, of feeling, of sensing the spirit world.
Love it. Wow, I just realized Crystal Perry was the other evidential psychic we've had on. Is that right,
Mhm.
Virginia?
Yes.
Yes,
Very
that's where I
Yes.
got the Perry
Yeah,
from.
that's where you got the
Um,
Perry from.
but yeah, she very much distinguished between clairaudient, clairsentient, and clairvoyant. So
Mhm.
thanks, again, for the listeners and me, thank you for clarifying that.
Oh, you're
Um,
welcome.
God,
And
it's fascinating.
there's more. There's clair alliance, which is smelling. So you could
Hmm.
smell if your departed loved ones, for example, smoked all the time. That would be validation that the sitter could take. Or
Interesting.
you could smell flowers. Perhaps they had flowers all the time. And then clairgustance is tasting. Maybe
Hmm.
you could taste grandma's famous pasta sauce, for
I was gonna say it would
example.
be lasagna in my
Yeah,
family.
it would
Only
be.
she's still alive. She's 93 and she'll never die because
It's
she's
always
Italian.
using our physical senses to really open that up by raising our vibration to connect with spirit. Yeah,
Whatever it takes.
whatever it
Interesting.
takes.
Well, and whatever, I mean, do you find that different psychics lean toward
Oh,
clairaudient over clairsentient or?
yeah. Yes, and for example, you're using Tyler Henry, so I would say the Long Island medium, for example, Teresa
Mhm.
Caputo. If you watch her, she's very clairsentient,
Mhm.
meaning she senses spirit, but she also hears them because you can watch her work and understand. So even when you watch people work, Tyler Henry, other mediums, you can understand how they're receiving their information. And a
Mhm.
lot of mediums will share with you during what the process is before they begin their work.
Right. Well, what is her name again? The Long Island
Teresa,
medium.
yeah, Teresa Caputo.
I adore her. I love
Yeah.
her,
Oh,
everything
she's,
about her. But
yeah.
I do want to ask, since they came up, again, these are very mainstream examples that
Mm,
we all, for good or bad, we have tropes in our mind as a result, right? Do you
mhm.
find them to be a good representation, or does it get sensationalized because it's entertainment? Do you feel for the mainstream that they
Mhm.
represent the reality of the field?
Mhm. Overall, it's a positive.
Mm,
Overall, it's a positive because it starts the conversation
hmm.
and it's bringing awareness that people have. And yes, some people have fear around the topic. But once again, it's through, asking those questions and watching people or looking for other qualified mediums and intuitives, such as myself or my colleagues that I would recommend. It's
Hmm.
people of high caliber that you can find information that's helpful, that's loving, and that's supportive.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
That makes
starts the
sense.
conversation. Sorry, and it maybe takes the fear out of it. Sorry, Virginia, go ahead.
No,
mhm,
I was gonna say it's true because like I know, so I live like because I'm in Utah and I live in a very religious state, and and I'm in the southern half, so it's definitely very conservative in my half of the state, because it's a more rural section of Utah. So Salt Lake's more has it's a little bit more open minded. It's gotten more mainstream up there versus where I'm at, and I've noticed in our newspaper and stuff they have, which has for me has been very great. But they have been starting to share like even like the moon phases and
great.
talking about like the super moons and stuff like that. And I love that because it is bringing that awareness and it is allowing those conversations to happen. It is allowing people to you know look beyond the typical things that we've been told, um the things that we believe, the ideologies, our own like you said, Dominic, the tropes that we've been told, our own
Mhm.
systematic biases on things. I
Hmm.
mean, it's nice. I like that. And so I was kind of thinking the same thing, because sometimes you wonder, eh, does it affect, in a negative way or a positive way when you're somebody who is in that, realm and culture, and or is it a positive? I always kind of always wondered that,
Hmm.
what it's like being on the receiving end when that is where, your livelihood is, how it affects you in so many ways.
Hmm.
Right. I agree with you. The moon phases is such a great um, topic to have. I'm happy for you that it's coming in your area because the moon has so much energy to it. And you and I, we all have more energy during certain times of the month. The full moon for me is a very amplified time. Everything, like they say, maybe the emergency rooms get a lot more patients on full moons, or people, it's like it takes the emotions and really accelerates them on a full
Hmm.
moon. Maybe more babies are born during a full moon, where there's also the new moon, where this is a time for new beginnings or setting new contracts or new ventures. People get married on the new moon because it's a time of new beginnings. But people really step into their power and learning about those types of things like Mother Nature, the energy of the planet, connecting with trees and the ocean, finding that within, right? Because you always hear the universe is within. If you ever want to
Hmm.
meditate on anything, you meditate on you being the universe.
I love it.
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz. Everything
Hey,
you need is in your own backyard.
so true.
Yeah.
There's so many ways of saying it, but now I have to ask one of the questions I have written down because it seems like we're touching on astrology a little bit and interconnectivity a little bit. And, we every week, right, Virginia, we talk about the very empirical Newtonian ways in which we're all interconnected,
Hmm.
right? From entanglement to just non-local energetic communication. So I'm going to try to ask my question or preface my question in the most graceful, least awkward way. But a big premise of my book is, divisiveness seems to be the word of the day, and it's very real. Uh, and so my contention is you can actually dissolve some of the divisiveness by understanding the role of semantics and perspective, right? You just shift your language a little bit, and a lot of the seemingly opposing, right, or mutually exclusive ideas share a lot of common ground. So I don't know if I've lost you yet, but I think like faith and or spirituality versus science, that
Yeah.
is a ridiculous, right, premise because it's just different terminology. So I do on this podcast, we've spent a lot of time kind of synthesizing or reconciling seemingly opposing thought forms when actually they're saying the exact same thing if you shift your vocabulary. So are you at all interested in using more Newtonian empirical terms to explain what you do, or is there no value to that really?
Well, absolutely. Well, look, metaphysics is, or I'll say physics is catching up with metaphysics, right? So
Yes. Well,
there is
quantum
this
mechanics certainly is,
quantum
right?
mechanics there. I mean, if we pray, for example, you know that if people pray for other people to be well, it really does make a difference, right? And Dr. Dr. Masura Emoto talks
Mm,
about the hidden language of water, even where he
yes.
took a glass of water and he had monks pray over it, and then he would photograph it and magnetize it, thousands of times, and it would be this beautiful crystal.
Mhm.
Where he would take another piece of water and put it maybe around an angry movie, so to speak,
Mhm.
or some darkness, something, so to speak, negativity. And
Mhm.
then he would magnetize that water drop, and that would
Was he
look, yeah.
sorry, was he in What the Bleep? Is he the
Yes,
yes,
yes.
okay.
What the bleep do we know? It's a
And I
beautiful.
think it's advanced. That was mid 90s. So his findings have probably gone off the charts by now. But that speaks to like the energetic connection of words and intention, right? There's an energy to our thought forms and our feelings. Is that right?
Absolutely. And so coming back, to circle or back around to mediumship and being a psychic and healer, a lot of healers, we set the intention. We
Mm,
always have to set the intention to be of service or for the highest good for helping others. And that's where the energy goes, right? As you mentioned, thought energy is going to follow thought. So,
mm,
why do we do this work? What is the intention to work with someone else? What is it that you want to share or bring through? Like
mhm,
how is it that you can serve what they're looking for if they're looking for help or guidance or healing?
mhm.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, there's so many every moment, right? You have the I don't know. I've long held this premise. You can look at the psychological level of an exchange, right? Or an interaction with somebody else, and it's valid, but there's actually an energetic level driving all in my parlance, you know? So whether
Mhm.
you look at the sociological implications or the anthropological or the psychological of a given moment, the bottom line is it's kind of all driven by the energy, right? The thoughts and feelings and the energy they put out. So it might manifest as, I don't know, like a defense mechanism, a Freudian defense mechanism, but really it is energetic. So I think maybe we can help societally shift the focus to intention, as you're saying.
And as we're moving towards that fifth dimension, so to speak, we are learning to be our own healer, right? We're all
Mhm.
advocating to learn to be your own healer, to work with your own energy, to maybe open up the mind and look outside either Western medicine or just look outside yourself and see what else is out there. That there are people, the acupuncture or energy healing that can really help people kind of step into more of a knowingness, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
faith and trusting. It's about really stepping in and recognizing what your own energy field feels like,
Well, I think
right?
we're learning because clearly the government can't solve our problems, right? And lawyers can't solve our problems. I think, the pendulum's always swinging, but I see a steady arc, you know, arguably since the beginning of the age of Aquarius, but really since the early 90s when, New Age became a section in the bookstore and then all the talk shows finally, put it on display. I feel like there is an arc toward taking personal responsibility for what you manifest, if that makes sense. And part of it is politics. We're realizing we're not getting our answers from our leaders. So we have the personal power to, right, at least have an awareness that our thoughts and feelings create the universe that we project, you know?
Absolutely. What's happening around you, or what's happening in front of you, or what's happening around this world, we all hopefully can take some responsibility or recognize that we can all add light to it, which means adding love, adding compassion, adding kindness, right? That golden rule. But it is about bringing more of an understanding that, we're all very different, but yet we're all very much the same.
Yeah, and one hopes the ripple effect plays its part too, right? Because we can
Yeah.
work on ourselves till the cows come home. But if the real big bad world is at all real, like we all need to do our inner work in order to manifest, right? Something other than a fascist dictatorship would be fine with me. But but the collective reality, whether you see it in really stark terms, or as a projection, either way, I do think all of our thought forms contribute to what it is we manifest on the macro level. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm being intentionally
No,
vague, I guess.
it's great because even just the thought of, someone saying, "Okay, maybe there is something out there greater than me." Just that
Mm,
one thought of someone who would never have thought that before
mm,
opens thousands of doors or opens so much light for this world and for this planet. So, I think sometimes we underestimate, or people underestimate, their power. They
mm,
underestimate their ability to, transform or to transform the world.
mhm,
And that's really the goal of stepping into that fifth dimensional awareness, is being more in that present moment, or the mindfulness that you were talking about,
mhm,
stepping into that present moment and realizing that the power is here, and that your power meaning love,
mm,
meaning inspiration, right? Meaning, faith and hope. Those are also high
mm.
vibrational situations or belief systems to hold on to. Yeah,
Yes.
really
Well,
can.
be the change you wish to see in the world. I
There we
always,
are.
right. And Michael Jackson even said the man in the mirror. And
There
sorry,
we
Virginia, I do repeat myself. But, during mid pandemic, when things did seem pretty grim as far as my relationship with the big bad world, whether it's real or not, I think everybody had a little bit of a nudge to figure out how the hell we got here, like deers in the headlights, right? And I think some people took the opportunity to look within, and maybe others not so much. But I know in all of it, I cited those, be the change you wish to see in the world, and the idea that if we all did our work, then the ripple effect would actually um, play its part. And I was told it was very Pollyanna. And I thought, but it always turns out to be true in the end, doesn't it?
Well, and it does, and I was as you've been talking about it. So I just recently was reading about Gestalt, which is a type of therapy that Frederick Pearls developed, and it's all about manipulating your environment to basically bring about change. So instead of waiting for external forces
Mm,
to bolster you, basically, you manipulate your external forces to pull from resilience from within inside to produce maturation. So basically your own internal self-confidence, so which is basically just another way of saying everything you both have just said. So there you
I
go.
have a question though. Like
Hmm.
Gestalt hints at this: the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? That's one
That's
idea.
Gestalt theory,
Oh, okay.
which is different from Gestalt therapy.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, I
it,
guess my question was,
yeah, and it builds up that does come from Gestalt therapy,
okay.
that theory. But yes, it
Yeah, the
is.
concept of Gestalt
Hmm.
as a
Hmm.
term, right? And
Right.
even in art, we talk a lot
Yeah.
about sort of perceptual.
Right.
The Gestalt studies are huge in design, and
Hmm.
even the idea of continuity or closure. Or anyway, I won't go into design because we're going to lose some people. But um, my question is, we've talked a little bit on this podcast about internal and external locus of control. Has that come up in your studies, Virginia?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm wondering. So, is that a Gestalt concept or not? The idea that we, again, have the personal power to manifest, or
Hmm.
we are subject and victim to the circumstances and conditions, the forces of the external world. Is that a Gestalt concept, or is that completely separate?
It is, and that's the point of where you manipulate your external forces. So basically, where in conversation A is maybe true, so that's the reality. So I failed my test, but the nonsense is, so therefore I'm stupid.
I
Is
wonder,
that?
Cheryl, does that come up?
Mhm.
Do you notice that in your clients? Like either they have a really strong external or internal locus of control, meaning they believe they have the power to, again, create their circumstances, stances and conditions, or whether they're subject to them.
Well, that's you said it right there, believe. That's the
Mm,
believe is they don't believe, or they doubt, or they have large doubts, or, I mean, they don't believe that they have any intuition, or they don't believe that they're on the right path, or they don't believe that they deserve what, to manifest even, or
mm,
to have abundance of any kind, or monetarily even. So yeah, it's words around belief.
mhm,
But right, and I think people are looking for more, how to take more control over their life. They are looking
mhm.
for, what can they do?
And
They
in
do
your
want to.
practice, are you empowering them to do that by exploring their intuition?
I am helping people. If I could share a story with you, it's a great experience that happened with one of my clients. Is yes, that is the answer, right? I am helping people find their inner light and their inner power. I had a client who had a car accident several years ago, and he had been suffering with back pain and all that comes with a car accident. He couldn't go to work. It had been several months. He was on medication now for depression and once again pain. And he called me not knowing where to go. He tried many things. He's working with his doctors, doing the best he can. So what my goal at that time, what I felt, was to help open him up intuitively to find out, who his guides are. How are they helping him? Can he ask them for help? Can
Mhm,
he find a way to bring understanding to why that even happened, that occurrence? And through working with him for several months, he was able to understand and touch base with his own higher self, his own higher guidance. He was, with the help of his doctors, of course, he was able to reduce pain medication, right? Get off depression, or at least decrease that as well. Hold a job, which is so important, right?
mm, mhm,
Young man. So this is the blessing, with the spirit world, and what you as a soul are looking for. Also, this man's spirit in some way was crying out for help. So that, I think in some way that's a real example of how tapping into your intuition can bring more understanding and healing because you
Hmm.
start bringing in, help, so to speak.
Hmm.
You start tapping into higher energy awareness
Hmm.
and understanding that you are more than that physical body.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
very story. We're seeing everything through
Mhm.
the lens of story. So I love it's helping people reframe the stories they tell themselves about their world and how they interact in their world. It's really
Mhm.
beautiful. Yeah, I'm just putting it a little bit in our terms, but you're awesome. I have to ask you, totally off topic. Do you ever get Katie Couric? Do people compare you to Katie Couric?
I haven't heard that yet.
Really, it could just be the video for our listeners. Where we don't always have video, but we do today. Yeah, you were a really calming presence. I'm sure you've heard that,
Well, thank you.
even remotely. Yeah, it's
Thank you.
just a great energy. I'm wondering, Virginia and I have both lost. We've had a lot of people pass recently, and actually, my mom just passed a year ago on the 3rd. So it's the anniversary, January 3rd. So maybe if you're willing to do a part two, do you ever do remote readings?
Absolutely. I do readings by phone and Zoom, and I work a lot on, I work a lot on Zoom.
Mm,
And really, that's where it's at for me right now. I still do a lot of public readings. I do
mhm,
even public demonstrations to show the survival of consciousness, right? Bringing through
mhm.
information to validate and confirm. But yes, I do. I'd love to do
Yeah,
that.
maybe exactly a part two would be awesome. I wouldn't spring it on you today, but I guess we're just very organic, as we said. Let's just have fun, and so here we are. But we
Yeah.
do often go down rabbit holes, or often the weeds, as we say. But I do think the magic happens when you allow, like you said, synchronicity to play its part. So whatever's on your radar right now, it's kind of fascinating how themes recur and motifs recur. And so I
Mhm.
just have to say, I'm in a very weird place, probably raw, energetically very raw. But I did just, and so I was going to ask you about dreams, because the biggest way in which I relate to, I never really put much stock in angels. It didn't really resonate with me, or archangel, whatever. Those entities don't play a big part in my life. But I
Mhm.
will say, since my mom passed, I just thrive on the dreams. I feel like they're visits, and I'm visiting with her soul, and I really am invested in them. And it's kind of saddening to me because they happened a lot in the beginning and a little bit less recently. So maybe
Mhm.
that's something we can talk about next time. But also, just yesterday, we have a guest coming on whom I've known since the age of 11. He's a very dear friend, and he's a magician these days. So he's an actor and a magician. And so I went to the Magic Castle here in Hollywood, which I've always heard about, but I've never been. And so I don't get out much. And it was the most magical, literally magical day. And it's another example of like, I could take or leave magic traditionally. And ironically, his brand is this is magic for people who don't like magic.
Oh,
And so for me, it was this performance art meets Dadaism meets, singing and dancing. And it was a very transformative experience. And he uses that word to describe his act. It's transformative magic. And at the end of it, all the lights came up, and he was good enough to come over and spend some time with us. And I just said, I'll save it for the podcast, but I couldn't be the only one that gets weepy. I walked out of there going, I do believe in magic. I want to believe in magic. It was talk about transformative.
yeah.
And he
Yeah.
did say, yeah, sometimes I get that reaction, but I just know it was
Wow.
by design, not calculated, but his act was so perfectly constructed that by the end of it, you've transformed.
How beautiful is that? And
I must have needed it. I mean, clearly, but
oh
I got,
yeah, and to do some release work, right? Yeah, to
mm,
just have some fun and laugh. I mean, that's is the best medicine, so to speak, or it's the best aid is to kind of forget about your worries or your life for a moment and be transformed.
yeah, it was cathartic, is the word we
Yeah.
would use in the storytelling realm. It was very cathartic. Does
Mhm.
that word resonate? Is it the same as transformation to you, like an emotional catharsis, or even a shift in thought forms as a result of an experience?
Oh yeah, it's really it and like you said the dreams, but it's mind-blowing for people. You know what you can experience by stepping into another person's energy or that type of an event that you went to was
Hmm.
possibilities, infinite possibilities and the
Exactly.
realms of imagination and the realms of play or the realms of joy, the realms of adventure even. Those types of energies are life transforming.
Mm, yep, you nailed it. It was possibilities, capacity, potential, because sometimes we don't see a way out of our situation. And to me, it is the outer world getting in. I've limited my news intake consciously. I've never been that guy to stick his head in the sand, but I just have to for my own self-preservation right now. But then, yeah, connecting back with the idea that there's always, tomorrow's another day.
Yeah.
But I do want to ask then, in this context, what is the role of dreams in our spiritual evolution, or I call it emotional maturity or spiritual evolution? How much attention should we pay to our dreams, and what role do they play?
Well, I believe we can pay even more attention to our dreams. And at least that's the hope that I have for people, is to pay more attention and to work with that type of consciousness or that sleep state that's helping
Mm-hmm.
us open up to connect on a soul to soul level. And that's where you are with your mom. Is, angels and guides may not mean a whole lot in your world, but connecting with your mom in a soul level in the dreams and having visitations with her, I mean, that is really kind of what so many people are asking for and yearning for. And I'm just so thrilled for you that you've had all those contacts and communications with her. And
Mm-hmm.
don't worry if they're lessening. I mean, it's some way, she's right there working with you in other ways. So that's how what's happening is she's showing you information or giving you signs and symbols, so to speak, in other ways. But I think our dream states are absolutely the way, or the easiest way, um, the departed loved ones can come through. They do
Mm-hmm.
come through when our guard is down, right? When our
Yes,
ego's
yes.
down, when we're out soul traveling, so to speak, and we are very present.
Mm-hmm.
I helped a friend of mine whose mother passed from Alzheimer's. I was helping both of them during the last few years of her mother's life, and her mother came to me in my sleep state and
Mm-hmm.
came and thanked me for
Oh.
helping her daughter, and thank you for being a part of her life too. And it's types of experiences that we have where we're open to the blessing of divine light, or the blessing of people who have crossed over, so to speak, to be still knowing that we're a part of their lives. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that you still feel very much that your mother's still in your life. Like, she's still your mother, yes, and she's still very much in your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to pin it all on the dreams. That
Yeah.
definitely illustrated that. And
Yeah.
now she's just funny. It's less frequent, but they're very funny. She's
I
turned into a comedian in
I don't know
different
if you
times.
do this or not, but do you have like a notebook and pen and paper next to your bed? Because I encourage that with people who want to improve on their
Hmm.
dream state, is to, when you do wake up from your dream, to, write it down,
Hmm.
write down what you remember, or use your phone to record into something. And, you know,
Yeah, well, exactly. I was gonna say on
yeah,
and off. I have kept a dream
yeah,
journal on and
yeah.
off, but lately it's more like the second I wake up, I do an audio because it goes by real quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing and it's so true. But it's like you're tapping into a consciousness that you can bring through more and remember more
Mhm.
by documenting it.
Right,
So
right. Hmm.
please, for everyone, just see if you can't begin that new habit for the new year of
Mm,
having pen and paper by your bedside.
awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, Virginia knows I do audios when I'm still groggy. I had one about you,
Yes.
Virginia. Did you get that one?
Yes, I did get
Anyway,
that one.
yeah, I like to record them because it's the details that are seemingly inconsequential are the most telling sometimes, and those are the details that go by if you don't record them right away. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry if we're off in the weeds. I do want to ask you, as we, in a few minutes when we're coming to a close, I want to ask you if there's anything you're really, really driven to share with our listeners. But we're getting our jollies a little bit by asking questions through our lens, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And so, in that spirit, I guess I asked you about the empirical Newtonian, whether it's even worth trying to reconcile the two, I guess. But when we talk about dreams, I would say that is story. I would say the images pre-language that visited in our dreams became the archetypes, right? The Jungian archetypes, in fact, that we utilize in our storytelling. And so, years ago in the 90s, I did live with a staunch empiricist, and he had a subscription to popular science, and I think I seemed a little kooky to him because I was open to metaphysical and spiritual ideas, and so he would regularly leave the magazine on our kitchen table, like flipped open to a page, and literally one of the articles was about the God gene,
Mm,
not the God gene. I'm sorry, yeah, the God gene. Sorry, not the God particle, but the God gene.
mm,
And the whole premise was this very staunch empiricist view that, oh, those who have numinous or profound experiences or that connect dots, meaning our intuitives, our prophets, our psychics, I would extend it to say our creatives, right? Just have a particular brain chemistry that predisposes them to blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, why can't it be both?
mhm,
Well, we have a gift
mhm.
that you can put on a pedestal or not and say we all have access to it. Or say it's a necessary, that, yeah, they have a particular brain chemistry that predisposes, but it almost made them out to be quacks.
Mhm,
Oh no, it's just this. It's like, well, why can't it be both? So I
mhm.
feel like, I don't know, with dreams, there was another article that he was good enough to put on our kitchen table, which was it's just a necessary function of the brain to clean the pipes and keep those, neural circuits firing and whatever, keep the dendrites moving. They mean nothing. And again, why can't it be both? Why can't it be your higher self or subconscious, call it what you want, but taking the events of the day or the week and creating a story out of them to impart something to you, something of value for your survival? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Pre language, that's the only way your higher self was able to give you, you know what I mean? The grist, take the grist of your daily events and offer you something for your survival.
And back in well, science is there to prove science, and right, we
Right.
have
It's a
to.
consensus like everything else. It's a bunch of peers agreeing that your research, right,
Yeah.
means something. It's still just consensus within that community. Sorry, go on.
No, and I think it's up to all of us to be, as informed as we can. I think physics is amazing, science is
Mm.
amazing, and the more we can, open our own brains or our own minds up into other worlds of interest or other topics and subjects, and to find out, how interesting. I mean, I just absolutely love physics myself, and I
Mm.
love relating that to my work in some way. You do see a lot of overlap when you start reading this material and looking into it. And I love it when people are skeptical. I love the questions people have because it opens up more opportunity and more answers. So it's
I
like,
guess I'm poking
bring it
fun at, so
on.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm poking fun at
Mhm.
it a little bit because I do think, of course, it's important to have your finger on the pulse of the latest discoveries and function in the world. We couldn't build bridges or send rockets into space. Not that that's the most important thing right now, but we couldn't function as a society without finding this meeting ground that unfortunately is empiricism, not the scientific method, but empiricism. But I do feel like my way of putting it is we've always known the tip of an iceberg, right?
Mhm.
We thought the world was flat. So you said a moment ago, like, I mean, I said quantum physics, but I think you said science is catching up in some
Mhm.
ways with the spiritual community. And I feel like that's the way to go, is just to say we're using different terminology, we're neck and neck. They've always sought to do the same thing, actually, science and well, they both seek to explain the universe, right?
It's wonderful. I love it. I love the Stephen Hawking's. I love the string theory. Like I love
Mm.
all of that information. And I know that everything that's before us in this world, we've created it in our imagination. Also, like the computers or the Taj Mahal, for example, was created. So things in our world are created first, in the invisible world, so to speak,
Yes, yes.
and then we bring it into form. To teach us or to show us what we can, to show us our magnificence
Mm.
that Michael Beckwith always talks about,
Mhm.
but
Right.
is to bring forth even more of that magnificence. To bring, don't.
Well, Ayn Rand calls it taking, right, concepts and making them percepts. That's every innovative or creative act. You're taking concepts and making them material, you know?
Right, Right. So, I love the left brain, right brain, because I do believe in that. I believe that, and we need to understand the energy of that as well.
Mm.
So many people walk around, even with headaches, just talking about that. They have so much mental energy going on. And we all need to think, we all need to, live our lives and conduct our lives and manage our checkbooks, so to speak, and drive our cars. So we need that
Mhm.
left brain or that masculine side to
Yes.
do that. But then also stepping into the fifth dimension or the divine female energy that's happening, that's stepping into the more intuitive side, the more receiving of information, right? The more reception of believing or, receiving that higher intuitive knowledge, I guess. I
Do you
guess
feel
we're
that we're
tapping into a higher knowledge.
do you feel that we're on that path?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think doors are opening left and right for people, and they don't know what it is. Some people don't. But once they realize that they're a part of it and they're not left behind,
Mm.
and, we're all at our own level, so to speak, we're all doing the best we can. But to know that, look, there's better things ahead of us, right?
Beautiful. Yeah, that's what gets me up in the morning is you hinted at masculine and feminine, and I see a merging of binaries, if that makes sense. And
Hmm.
Virginia and I have talked about, and then there's people digging in their heels, right? Because change is
Hmm.
scary to some, and so. But I do think we're on the right path. It's just painfully slow, and the pendulum swings, and there are regressions. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I just hear in all of that we're embracing what would traditionally be seen as feminine qualities, but it's just a word, right? Feminine, and so I like this trend toward merging binaries, is my way of putting it. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and feminine meaning sensitivity. How's that? Just
right,
becoming
right.
more sensitive, right? We're
Well,
opening
or
up our
humanistic.
senses. Yeah, more
Hmm.
human, more
Hmm.
balanced.
Yep, we're headed in the right direction. Unfortunately, the elections didn't go the way I really, really thought they were going to go. Anyway, so Virginia, do you have any last questions before I do want to say, if there's anything you're really driven to impart to our listeners, Cheryl, I'm going to give you
Mhm.
that opportunity. But I feel, Virginia, that you might have a question or two.
Um, no, you've actually touched on everything that I was already kind of thinking, so I
Yeah.
don't have anything additional. I just really love everything you've shared. I no, I
Okay,
don't.
I'll let you off the hook. Um, but I do hope we can do a part two because
I
Yeah.
I
do,
would
yeah.
love to have you do a reading, not to sensationalize anything, but I think it would be really eye opening.
Yeah, of course, of course. And if I were to impart anything to your listeners, I would say, look, it is our own responsibility on shaping this world and our own
Mm,
lives when we move forward. And one way, or uh, the most way we can, the highest offering we can make is one of gratitude,
mhm,
because
mm,
gratitude, and I really think it's people's responsibility to step into this energy of knowing that, look, we can heal. And not only do we heal or bring healing to our own lives, but we can also heal people around us or heal, even energies or departed loved ones. The ancestral energy is a
mm,
big deal right now, especially, and we
Mhm.
can talk about that at a later time. But it is about kind of stepping into, the possibilities
mm.
and
Yeah,
stepping
we talk about
that we're waking up. Yeah.
intergenerational trauma quite a bit on this
Mm.
podcast. So
Mhm.
we talk about it in terms of, reframing the narrative, rewiring those neural circuits. Do you have I mean, it's silly to turn it into a soundbite, but like a suggestion on how people, other than, different types of therapy, or how do you resolve intergenerational trauma? You hinted at gratitude.
Mhm.
Do you recommend a gratitude journal?
Always I recommend a gratitude journal. I recommend either prayer or meditation. So what I'm saying is time to reflect, however
Mhm,
you want to word that.
mhm,
But it is about kind of understanding that you are your own energy field and you do bring through that healing for other people when you can connect with your own inner light, right? Your own energy field of how you're feeling, where is your awareness, and documenting that. Once again, having that
Mm,
gratitude journal kind of brings you, right down to the present moment.
mhm.
So if anyone's looking on how to be in the present moment, step into gratitude, because that opens doors for you and it turns the wheels of favor in your direction, to where you can be more present.
Love it. Beautiful.
That's
All
just really,
right. Sorry, go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh, I was, sorry. I know that you're thinking about wrapping it up, but I just love it, and I know we've talked about present a lot, and I like that you've said that, because I think that's probably a key thing, is not being in the past, but being
Right.
present.
Right.
And
Well, perseverating on the past or defining
mhm,
yourself by your past is the best way to limit capacity and
right,
potential, right?
exactly.
But I
And I
know
think,
gratitude, sorry, we're hinting at so many things here, but it's
mhm,
all kind of in the same arena, I think
mhm,
that you mentioned prayer and meditation. So some schools of thought would say, affirmations are the way to go. And if you keep a gratitude journal, you're affirming, do you know what I mean? Things are always working out for me, actually. And Abraham Hicks talks a lot about that. Just get in the habit of, so mantras, even,
Yeah.
everything's always working out in my favor. Uh, those are awesome.
Yeah.
But some schools of thought would say, actually, it's like pushing a wet noodle up a hill, right? In some ways, if those neural circuits are so fixed. So meditation, in my world, that's the best way to disentangle familiar neural circuits, and it just leaves room for new ones. So I don't know, different strokes for different folks, but I think we're all kind of saying the same thing, that we do have the power by
Mhm.
stepping into the moment. And now we're in Eckhart Tolle territory a little
Mhm.
bit, right?
Mhm.
The present moment awareness, right? That comes
Mhm.
up a lot on here.
Yeah. Present
Anyway,
awareness. Yeah.
yeah,
Thank-
well, it's the same thing, right? When you appreciate those dapples of light on your windowsill while doing the most mundane thing like dishes, you're
Mhm.
actually, and artists have a leg up on that actually. When you get those gamma waves flowing by choosing to paint a still life or, a plein air painting on location, you really are limiting the mental chatter and diffusing mind and ego. And what else is there? The moment. So I don't know. I do think, there are some universals, but we are unique and different.
Yeah.
So, would you agree people have access to different tools and whatever works for you? Or what are the universals? You already just beautifully rattled off some habits people can develop, which I love.
Yeah. Well, everything you just said is we're so diverse, and we don't even know how much we're capable of doing yet. Sometimes our consciousness just doesn't can't wrap we can't wrap our brains around it sometimes. So where we're heading and where we're going, I think it's very unique. I think this is a very historical time, meaning that
Mhm.
really the whole planet, like every individual on the planet right now, is going through transformation, right? Every banking, hospital,
Mm,
educational arena is definitely, we're all working together to create some way of unity.
mm,
It
mhm,
is through the unity vibration that we do create a lot of miracles. Yeah.
mm. I like the idea that unity or interconnectivity is the path we're on, but yet recognizing that all the threads make up the tapestry. I'm mixing metaphors a little bit, because there is a push toward telling all the untold stories that have been silenced and erased. And we do hear that here on the podcast because we have own voices in literature. And so, yeah, I'm just adding that. Because Virginia, you remember I got in trouble when I mentioned the
mhm.
universals in the form of the hero's journey. I obviously talk about harping on the past, right? I got accused of, I'm perpetuating patriarchy because it's a tool to oppress, and it's like it can be both, right? Acknowledging the universal that makes us human, while acknowledging all the different threads, because it does take a village. I'm talking in
Well,
platitudes now. Sorry.
Boy,
yeah.
true.
Well, here, and I'm going to go back to Gestalt for you, Dominic, but you're going to like this. So this is the focus of Gestalt therapy, and this is literally what Frederick Pearl says is awareness equals present time equals reality.
Okay, wait, one more time. Aware.
Awareness equals present time
Mhm,
equals
mhm.
reality.
Wow. Yeah.
Mm.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, I think we now have said it all.
I think so. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Yeah.
What do you?
And it's through the present moment, or just to add to that, it's through the present moment that we find that stillness, which is peace, and which is really that God energy, or
Mhm.
the greater spirit energy that we have, each one of us.
Yeah, I've noticed in turmoil, right, in crisis mode, when you need it the most, if you can still your mind, and I've lived it,
Yeah.
that inner peace, that well-being, that tranquility, it takes a while to get there, but if you can meditate and find it, it really is reassuring, because you know what? It's always available. And so,
Hmm.
that idea of like in prison, you can still have inner peace somehow. And finding it in crisis is the best affirmation that we always have access.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you so much. And I'm not kidding about the part two, so I would love to follow up, and we'll send you an invite. Thank you so much. It was really a gift.
Thank you for
Yes.
having me, both of you, so much. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great to have you, Cheryl. Thank
Oh, it
you.
was fun. Thank you.
Okay. And for our listeners, remember, life is story, and we can get our hands in the clay. Individually and collectively, we can write a new story. See you next time.
We want to take a moment to thank our wonderful listeners and supporters. Your continued support and sharing of our podcast helps us spread the transformative power of storytelling. If you enjoy our episodes, please rate and review us on your favorite platform and share the podcast with friends and family. For more enriching conversations and insights, subscribe to Language of the Soul podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Follow us on social media and visit our Patreon website for the latest updates and exclusive content. Your support helps us continue to bring these important stories to life. If you'd like to support us further, consider joining our Patreon community for exclusive content and donation options. Every bit of support helps us reach more hearts and minds.